Fermented chlorella. Delicious. They do actually taste good, and they are really good for you. It helps detoxify your liver or something. But I'm not recommending anybody take it, but I take it and it works pretty well. So that's just my opinion. Yeah. Oh, okay. So, hello, planet Earth. Untamed Druid here with another Untamed chapter. This is the third installment, and this one's called Proper Education. So, last video I was talking about, how, school is unhelpful, in the ways that it should be. We spend a lot of time at school and a lot of effort. I understand that, school is important in our society these days. So, yeah, I'm not saying people should just, give up on school and, drop out of school. I'm not, a radical in that way. I did drop out of school, but that's personal choices, and it was more really social, and I just couldn't keep up with the situation I created for myself. So, I wasn't able to stick it out. So there was weakness there, but then also, beyond that, because it's obviously going to influence what I'm saying, just had to get that out there. Even when I was in school, I did pretty well, but I didn't traditionally, learn based on the memorization that, is like the focus of the seeming focus of school, and the just the exoteric understanding of everything that we were learning. So they really focused on, memorizing the names and the function of the name, but the function wasn't necessarily as important as the name. You had to have name recognition above function recognition. So, that's just a basic reference to what's wrong with our systems. We don't really focus on function. We're not educating people on function, even though we're learning about all these complex systems, and people are learning things in school, and it's not that you're not learning anything, it's that there's no inherent application of what you're learning immediately to something in real life. So it's all abstract, and there's no focus on actually implementing any information that you're getting. So it's there's just a lot of space for people to get lost, because there is no hand holding in it. It's not meant to help you be a successful individual. It's meant to make it so that you rely on the industrial sector, which was booming and was encouraging this the Prussian schooling system to come about. So let me check this out. Whoa, here, the Prussian education system. Yeah, so established in Prussia as a result of educational reforms, remains important as a biopower. Yeah, as a biopower in the Foucaultian sense of nation building. So basically, let me find where it said it. Sorry. He said something where Foo. So, yeah, this is the basis of what the characteristics of the Prussian system would have achieved. And so all of these things are related to the Prussian system. Drivers and hindrances. So, yeah, resistance. Yeah, so basically, yes. Here we go. Yep. So here it is. It's being promoted. Yeah, broad. Okay, here it is. Got a minute. Unreadable. Broad general knowledge in full academic freedom without any determination or restriction by status, profession, or wealth. Generic education. So we're taught with a generic education. That principle from the Prussian system has remained. So in my, it would be Neo-Prussian or whatever, but it's still Prussian, and it's still prevalent, and it's still existing. So we're taught with this, idea that if we're just given a whole bunch of random information, we'll make do of something, of all of it. We'll put it all together because we're all fully capable and rational humans, instead of seeing that being fully capable and rational is the result of generally moral living. It's moral, not meaning, not having sex all the time. That's up to, the interpreter if that's being moral, but it's really, living within your constraints, and not, harming yourself, because you have sex all the time, or harming yourself because you can't stop smoking or you can't stop drinking. It doesn't mean you don't not do those things, but, just not the reliance on it. In moral, more implying your own morals or your own sense of right and wrong. Because society and parents and just everybody that you're going to influence, that is going to influence you, that you are going to interact with, every single person that you interact with is trying to influence you. So you could say, I'm trying to influence you right now. But in the way that I'm trying to influence is that I would like everyone to become aware of the simplicity of everything, so that they can learn to do whatever they want with it. And, to show people that this life really isn't limited. We limit ourselves, and others will definitely try to limit us and encourage us to limit ourselves. So there's lots of forces going against us. And education, is a big one that we all go through the grinder. We're all indoctrinated with this stuff. So, and it's really just it's a lack of direction. It's not really anything wrong with what we've learned. And so it's really hard to critique or talk about, because it's like there's levels at which it's what needs to exist, but then there's also levels at which it's just not strong enough. It's like, yes, we need general knowledge so people can follow their passions, but then beyond that, there needs to be intentionality in the system to actually help people fulfill what they're trying to do, instead of just pushing them through and then putting them in just in the middle of everything, and you just have to know what's going on, and if you don't, you're just left behind. There's no I know that that's just the way it is, and it's like, right, and I just think, if you're gonna say anything's wrong with it, that's what you would say would be wrong with it. So if we're gonna talk about where would the problems lie, that's where I would say a big problem lies. We put everybody in these separate boxes, and we view even like different subjects like science, math, whatever, grammar, all of these things, we view them all differently. You know, grammar is like numbers with different symbols. So, you know, there's Kabbalah and stuff you can do with that, but we view like architecture and math and science. Those are all viewed as separate in a way. And there's nothing in the ethos that's telling you, hey, these are all the same and they're all affecting each other, you know. And like once you go into these subjects, then you get filled in like a personal way. You're filled in with the information that these things are all the same. They're all referencing the same thing, and they're all interacting in the same ether or like space. So like they're all affected by these. Like science is the application of math with matter, you know, and so like it's all mixed together. Like, so to know science you have to know math, and to know you know, like to know things about governments you have to know things about biology, because it's basically the same. And like you don't have to know it, but if you do know it, you can see that it's the same. And like that's why, you know, if you cross big enough gaps you can see similarities. And a lot of people, you know, it's just coincidence, but if you can take that step where it's not just coincidence and you can trust that, that's a huge you know, you're following what I believe is yourself. And you know, it will lead you to where you're supposed to go, especially when it comes to wisdom. And you know, it's more trusting your instincts than, you know, really being led or given certain information. It's trusting your read of a situation and not defaulting to, you know, some outside source. And you want to be as correct as possible, you know, as often as possible, because why would you want to be actively wrong unless you're trying to terrorize people and you just really don't care? Which, I mean, you know, I guess people do that, but anyway, got off to a place there. Sorry. So, yeah, proper education. Let's see what I got here. I write everything down in this nice handy journal. Morals needed. Yes. I believe I spoke on morals. Don't really remember. Oh, yeah, so the morals, needing morals is often echoed throughout the different mystery schools, you know. I'm not sure if I said that, and I can't remember, so I'm gonna just leave it at that. But like, the necessity of morals is huge, so, you know, if I did mention it before, it's worth mentioning twice, because, you know, just even developing your own moral system, you know, it sounds like you're abandoning society. So if that's too much, just pick up your society's moral system. But, you know, having morals imbues your life with limits that you can either supersede and be like, I set the limits, or you can follow. But if the limits don't exist, you know, they still exist, you're just not aware of them, because there's always limits in natural life. We live in a limited reality. So limitation is all around us, and to not acknowledge it, you're missing a whole swath of information. And it's, you know, it's just another result of the Prussian system, where we're only educated in half of a way. We need something to latch onto to have a full conception of reality, and we're educated in that way. And it's it's pretty messed up once you become aware of it and you start looking into it. So yeah, maybe buyer beware, or reader beware. So yeah, singularity systems, everything basically working from the same framework, which is what I'm claiming is numerology, sets up the basis of math, which is the basis of science and all of these other things. So numerology is huge. It sets up this singularity of systems. Numerology is the singularity of systems, and applying it to things just shows you what's going on. So you have a way to clarify your speech and like understanding to ease communicating with people. And that's, to me, I mean, there's, you know, many applications for it, but I focus on this aspect because communicating with people is something that society seems to be not doing so well with right now. You know, if you don't have my opinion, I get to shut you down, is the way things have been going, and that's not cool. So yeah, taking every stand against that we can is awesome as people. Yeah, and the singularity of systems is not meant to defraud anybody. It's not meant to you know, do anything negative. You know, it's really just meant to give people that are lost access to just this higher awareness, because, you know, it's obviously being deprived and like tamped down, and you're made fun of if you think this. And it's like, no, like anybody that's successful thinks this, and they just won't admit it because it's just like, oh, you know, it just makes it so much easier, and it reduces the complexity that definitely overwhelms people, especially if you're anxious, or if you're, you know, in a poverty situation, or, you know, there's so many situations in life that can push you to the edge, and it seems very complicated. But the only time it gets complicated is once you've ignored the simplicity enough, you get stranded, you know. So at that point, you know, life is complex, and it's not simple. It's not black and white. There's lots of gray, you know, and black and whites are the poles, and so anyway. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So back to numerology. So what is three? Numerology kind of rhymes. What is three? Three is the Trinity: Father, Son, Holy Spirit. You know, whenever trilogy you want to think of, Lord of the Rings, 1, 2, 3, Star Wars. Star Wars is a good one because it really shows what 3, 6, 9 is, because they did the whole thing. Star Wars is pretty, you know, you just have to look at it with your, you know, occult incense, no, occult an occult mind frame, you know, and look at these things, read into the meanings, you know, with the Force, and, you know, Star Wars is huge, you know, and then with the 369, there's basically, you know, Father, Son, Holy Ghost. So that represents three distinctions, and then 369, there's three distinctions of three. So there's three threes. So it's Father, Son, Holy Spirit, the lowest version, and then the middle version, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and then the top version, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. So there's 9, and it's supposed to represent the entire chakra system. You could say that they each represent a planet based on, you know, you could just apply these things to a lot of different things. So the fact that they actually came out with 9 movies and you can actually do this is pretty cool. But you know, and you have to approach these things with an open mind, but not an assuming mind. So you can't just haphazardly just assign meaning, you know, if there isn't any. It really takes some concentration still, and it's not just blind imagining, you know, for anybody who's, you know, second guessing my genuineness, because it's not, you're not taking everything that's happening in Star Wars as being real, but you're taking the messages, like just the underlying messages, just underneath the physical parts, you know, like the implications of the physical parts, like what all of it's implying if you would apply it to our real life, basically. Yeah. So with three is a manifestation of gradations within people. So it's basically your groin area, and then your heart chest area, and then your head, and that's the three distinctions. And then you see these in bugs and all other animals. If you look up anatomy of mammals and anatomy of everything, you all have a chest and a body, or a bottom and a top, and these seem to function together, and it's Father, Son, Holy Ghost. It's the whole manifestation of man. So it's the three strongest power centers that stop us from attaining spiritual. That's how they manifest in the physical. I can go in pretty deep. I don't want to lose anybody, so so basically the idea is that we live in the third dimension, right? There's like an x-axis or a y-axis and an x-axis, and then we live in the dimension where there's a z. Where there's a z, if you can imagine, like going from a flat piece of paper to like two pieces of paper like crossing each other, and then it being like a spheroid hologram projected onto those four intercrossing pieces of paper. Like if you can just imagine that, and then like just basically a globe. Here's it's like this globe being cut into four pieces. Think, if that would happen, that, or like just imagining that is a close representation. Holy shit, 1 second. Yeah, is a close representation of the world that we live in. We basically live in like a manifestation of that idea. So that represents the three dimensions in which we can get trapped. Generation, food, or mentally we can become upset. What this further reveals is that there are three manifestations of this within man. So the seemingly simple, can immediately become more complex, because at each interval, each next three is a representation of three, so there's 9 in total. So it instantly becomes more complex. So it's like the simplicity can become complex, but it's all a representation of the simplicity. So simplicity is really what you want to build anything that you're doing around, because if it's not simple, it's not going to be profitable. It's not going to be efficient. These are the hallmarks of, worthwhile business. So, it's not going to be worthwhile if you don't follow simplicity, and the successful people are already doing this, they just don't talk about it, because it's just like, well, you just keep everything simple and just do it, and then you're successful. And it's I guess you could say it's easy for me to say, because of how successful I am. No one watches these, but so I can just say whatever I want, and it's like, oh, how would you know? But it's just there's been no time and no application, so that's my fault. But it's the rationale behind the thinking is what I'm saying, because I'm not really directing people on what to do. It's more to free yourself to think your own thoughts, because I know the thoughts are successful. It's just I struggle applying them because I don't really apply thoughts. I come up with thoughts and things like that. So more of a generator and a dismisser of thoughts, or a disseminator, whatever, of thoughts, not dismisser. But yeah. Anyway, so what is three? Three is life. 9 is the perfection of man, and yeah. So just look up different things about chakras, and anything that aligns with these specific numbers, you can apply these different characteristics on. And that's why I love numerology, because it just ties everything together, so you can know what you're looking at when you're looking at anything, and then you get lost in the secular language of it. But that's the problem with secular studies. It's there's no thread that connects anything. So next, so I wanted to talk about what I'm reading right now. So I got the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's called the Papyrus of Ani, A-N-I, and pretty interesting. There's lots of huge whatever things at the bottom. I'm trying to explain what the text says, and the text, it's really interesting because it's just like writings in Egyptian, and then there's hieroglyphics, and it's cool to see the hieroglyphics being used. But then yeah, Papyrus of Ani, I don't know. Yeah, seeing hieroglyphics used is really cool, and trying to figure out hieroglyphics is part of a further knowledge retreat that I'm having, where another book I wanted to talk about was Atlantis by Ignatius Donnelly. And if you read that, and you try to expand on his ideas, the idea is to learn South American dialects with all of their advanced hieroglyphics, and then compare them to Egyptian hieroglyphics and some of the older hieroglyphic scriptures, and see how they represent the same language. And he's trying to say that there was Atlantis, and that Atlantis disseminated all culture to all people, and that's the Indo Aryan culture and language systems that exist all over the world. If you look up these things on the Google, just you don't really have to look very hard. There's just no emphasis on them. It doesn't stand out, and it's not like this is important information. So you really, that's what it mean. You have to be able to trust yourself and your own instincts, looking up things, and going to Wikipedia, not the best source, but going from Wikipedia has sources listed, and you can follow those. I don't necessarily agree that Wikipedia is a terrible resource, but it in and of itself, it's just the idea that anybody can post anything, and it's up to people to moderate and check on it. Yeah, it's just things are gonna slide through, so you can't believe everything you read on Wikipedia. But numerology, the Prussian system, yeah, and then Atlantis, Ignatius Donnelly is also a great book, because it he references the division of 4 amongst races. I really disagree with his final conclusion, because he is another promulgator of the idea that the black people were not involved in this huge movement of races and stuff. And he said that black people that were involved in the valley, the Kush Valley and things, they were related to red people, which was Native Americans and apparently Arab people. So he's got a pretty expansive idea on this stuff, and it's not that I believe all of that. It's just that it represents the division of four, and so there's that numerology again, and then the map. This is a simple circle, but the thing is that it's represented often in Native American cultures. You know, the medicine wheel or the four different divisions. They use the same. He references the same colors, and he does talk about Native American tribes a lot. So, you know, he puts forth a lot of really interesting ideas, and it's not really to get caught up on the race and be, you know, saying any of these things. And it's not that I don't believe that black people, you know, like that part of his philosophy. I just think there's no way, like it was just seeped into everybody. There's no way to, you know, expect somebody to not have some kind of racist overtones at that point, because it was everywhere and everyone was like that. So not justifying it, but being able to look back at historical information and understand, yeah, they're going to be racist. You know, it doesn't stop the information from necessarily being true. So if you can, you know, address that you don't align with all of that, you know, but you know, that if you can doctor the ideas to not, you know, like what, it doesn't stop it from being true. It's just like, well, we don't think like that, and it's just like, well, you can still apply his train of thought without the racist gibberish, you know. So it's like, I don't know, really good book, Ignatius Donnelly. Check him out. I'm always going to recommend Michael Sarian to anybody, you know, looking for information. Michael Sarian is clutch. Unslaved, you know, $12, I guess, but it's good stuff. He's got a lot more information than me. He's got a lot more sources. He's got books. He's been doing it for a long time. So Michael Sarian's great. I'm reading, where is it? Reading Dante, the Inferno, and then there's Nuevo, Vita Nueva, Vita Nuova, New Life, by Dante, and good stuff. You know, he takes Christian theology and really you know, applies these different ideas that I'm talking about into a single cohesive story. So especially, you know, it being a poem, it's kind of weird seeing it translated, and it's not the best. It's the portable version. So I had a really nice version, the hardcover, and I just lost it, you know, just I was 17 when I got it and just like lost the huge expensive book. Just, it's gone now. So classic. Let's see. Yeah, Dante. It's Dante is really good, especially, you know, in Dante there's the 9 rings of hell, and you know, there's so many metaphors, and you know, the numerology. You know, Dante's a perfect example of, if you're studying numerology and then read something like Dante, and like all of the manifestations of these different numbers have the same overtones. I don't know. They just, look it up. Get into it. It's good stuff. Of course, J.R. Tolkien, whatever, Lord of the Rings. I think that's his name. Hope I didn't say his name wrong. But and then J.K. Rowling. You know, both of them, you know, same kind of thing. And then Tolkien, also, he was into, you know, some interesting, I guess, what would be called conspiracies, but he was interested in the idea that like of the Norse mythology, and he imbued a lot of Lord of the Rings, which was based on like kind of like the King Arthur idea. He imbued it with a lot of Norse mythology that was like secret to the Christian overtones that are obviously present. So yeah, good stuff. the vision of 9 rings to man. There's so many. Anyway, um, J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling is elementary. Just read Harry Potter. It teaches you all of the natural philosophy. It just goes through all of it. There's 4 divisions for the schools that represent the 4 different elements. You see the characteristics that represent personalities, that represent those signs, or represent those elements, whatever element the school they're in, or house they're in, school. um, and then, it's just basic magic shite. Yeah, so J.K. Rowling, and then there's 7 of those, 8 movies. Crazy stuff. There's numerology everywhere. The movies are a little cheesy at this point, but I guess I have a lot of memories with them, watching them when I was growing up. And I read the movies since I was a young child in like 1st grade, or read the books, not read the movies. And then lately I've been reading things on Edgar Cayce, and he does dream work and is like a modern, semi-modern, in the 50s and 40s, modern American psychic who would interpret people's dreams and, hold on, yeah, he would interpret people's dreams and really help them work through what they were dealing with. And he was also a alternative health person who thought that, thought was really impactful on your health. And it's the basis of, your physical health is how you view and interact with yourself internally. And dreams were the basic landscape that we had to have any real awareness of the information in our subconscious, which was trying to tell us how and what to do. So interesting stuff. Edgar Cayce, and I also have the Edgar Cayce Handbook, which is an interpretation by these 2 people, maybe they're doctors, not sure. They take Edgar Cayce's ideas though and give it to you in like a way that is ready to be understood and applied after reading it. Like upon reading it, you can apply this and try and follow their advice. And it's a cool idea. 24 different things, and the idea isn't to just rely on it. So it's like, that's a dangerous thing where they're just like, yeah, you can just carry this book around with you and read from it and be like, yeah, I have the knowledge. But that's always a risk when it comes to books. So I don't think that was their intent, and it's definitely something you can just read on your own time. You don't have to walk around with it. It's called a handbook, but do what you like. But if you want to walk around and read, I do that. So yeah, I'll join you. So I've also been reading about Bhakti yoga, which is good stuff. Most of what I talk about comes from a position of a Bhakti yogi or Bhakti yoga practitioner, apprentice, I guess, or adept. Just the position of fraternal love, veganism as much as possible, inclusion, support, looking out for other people, telling the truth, listening to yourself, finding that quiet time, and really respecting your own existence. These are all big tenets. And I've got it over here. The book I've been reading on it is The Journey Within by Radhanath Swami. It's pretty good stuff. It's pretty basic, big text. I got it from the Festival of Chariots in Novi, Michigan. Good stuff. They kind of pushed a bunch of, Krishna literature on me, which is, kind of what I expected. It was a little expensive for my taste, but, once you get into reading it, it really It's really mind expanding, and they had just basic, what was it? Uh, oh, I don't want to say the wrong name, so I've also read the Upanishads and Ramayana and stuff, so Indian culture's huge, but yeah, that's my basis, and Bhakti Yoga was really, I really found an interest when I went to this festival of chariots, and I saw how everyone was interacting and sharing and dancing, and of course before COVID, so it was really a fun experience, and just the general ideas in Bhakti Yoga. It's just like, why not just apply the general ideas to your life, because it's just all about having a good time, being a good person, not consuming too much, not being harsh, not using harsh chemicals, things like that. You know, yeah, so these things aren't really incorporated, and I guess now I'm giving you my moral background, just in that, these are where I've gotten my morals, and who I'm reading and what I'm following up on to, show that, you can create your own moral system. It's just, you just have to listen to yourself and truly, be willing to limit yourself if you think that you're supposed to, and that's really hard. Still hard. And I'm playing bass a lot. Bass guitar. I might do bass videos. But the thing is that I don't really know how, and I'm like teaching myself how to play. So not the best. And my bass is a left-handed bass, and I'm a right-hander. So I'm playing upside down, and the first like 3 frets on each string just buzz, so I can't play any notes up there. I've got to play down on the fretboard, and then there is no lowest string, so I've got 3 strings on this left-handed bass upside down with the broken top parts. So I'm playing bass in that way, and if I can get to making videos, but I'm not necessarily the most confident in my bass skills, if you want to call it that. It is a bass, and I always go for the cheapies, and it doesn't necessarily work out, but it still works, and you can kind of get music out of it. So fun stuff. And music in general, is just another application of these ideas of like in Western music, there's 7 notes or whatever, and that represents the 7 of numerology, and then you could even take it to 9, and then in Eastern music there's even more notes. I forget. Yeah, lots of notes in Asian music, even though it's just like semitones. I'm pretty sure they break it down into semitones instead of full tones. That's the difference. So it's like they're playing the same notes, but like different distinctions. Or like if you're like chopping the note in half, they're playing like the different parts of the bigger notes that they play in Western music. Just the, and it's really interesting to look at Eastern numerology, Western numerology. Just, there's lots of information, and there's lots of things you can mess around with and mix up the systems with and come up with your own system. And most of the ideas are to come up with your own system based on this information that's existing. And if you're not trying to come up with your own information or your own understandings, you're not really applying it. So it's just you participating in the Prussian education system, which is just acquire as much knowledge as possible and not really have anything to do with it, and then just randomly get a job based on the degree you have, and then become specialized even further in your specific job field. So it's and you can break out of it, and not necessarily everyone's doing it, but if you have minimal awareness of it, lots of people just fall for it because that's what it encourages. And if there's no support in their life, yeah, that's it's just what happens. And then I've also been reading, finish it off, the Jewish Bible, the Tanakh. Um, it's just the beginning. There's the different books and everything, but yeah, the Tanakh is huge to me. Christianity is based off of Judaism, which is an expansive world you can look into, which where did Judaism come from, and all of these questions. With the book Atlantis by Ignatius Donnelly, it really gets into a lot of different controversy involved in these different things, and also channels like Atlantean Gardens and Robert Seffer's the guy, and Mind Unveiled. They really talk about expanding these ideas more and putting more meat on the bones of these ideas. If you haven't really heard about them or read, Ignatius Donnelly or anything, but I got the book from a store in Ann Arbor. I think it was like $20, but it's a book from the 1800s, so it's a little bit old, a little dry, but yeah, there's that doesn't stop it from being good information, and it kind of means it's going to be more unfiltered, based on the filtering that we really get in our modern information. It's just implicit, and they won't post things, they won't say things that are controversial, because it involves race. They won't say anything, even though it's for the most part pretty race positive for the time. He thought highly of everybody, and was pretty actively anti-racist, even though it can be easily construed as racist because he's talking about race. So I think I mentioned that already, but it's just worth mentioning again. If you're gonna run into these books, you can't get mad at me because he's talking about race. It's like recommending Mark Twain to somebody. It's like, well, I mean, it's good books, but he's racist, motherfucker. So yeah. Anyway, the Tanakh. It's just, if you're a Christian, read the Tanakh. It's barely different. Just expand horizons. Don't minimize them. And but also feel rooted in yourself. Don't just listen to me, but don't negate experience just because you've never experienced it, because that nothing would be achieved if nobody was willing to experience anything new. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Hit that like and subscribe. Hit the little bell. Get all the notifications. I'm gonna hopefully make a couple more of these this week. It's really fun to talk to you guys, and comments if you got any. Love to hear from you. I love to work with anybody that need to work with you, please. But seriously, if you want to work together, just leave a YouTube message or something. It'd be really cool to have further discussions about these different ideas I'm throwing out here, and just see how other people are coming up with their own moral systems, or really interpreting what they're digesting as far as food, reading, whatever. I am a gardener, so if you spend time outside, if you have outside comments, or if you, I don't know, go on hikes or anything, anybody looking to be involved in this Untamed project, reach out, and I'll reach back out. Yeah. So good talking to you guys, and see you later.